Being black in private school.
Mm. You go first. What year?
Me.
I mean, yeah, I got sandwich in my mouth.
Okay.
What
Okay.
year did you first start in private school? I guess let's start there. Let's start
Yeah, yeah.
what year and what was like some of the biggest transitions that you experienced just in that jump from
Mm.
public to private?
Oh man. So I started private school my ninth grade year of school after bouncing around public schools. My mom was like, enough. Cause clearly for both of us, it was a really important moment when it comes to social capital, if you're being honest. Like if you're gonna make that transition and you want to have a smooth transition academically and get folks set up for college, because we grew up in a household where the world has since changed, our family has since changed, but college was kind of a non-negotiable. It was just what as normal as Wednesday comes after Tuesday, college comes after high school. It was not to be negotiated. So it was a smart move on my parents' end that completely changed the trajectory of my life, academically, professionally, personally. And so I started in ninth grade. I tested in, was able to get a scholarship to, I don't want to say one of the best schools in the state, but I live in one of the best cities in the state. And if you're in the best school in the best city in the state, then it kind of makes it by default one of the
A
best
plus
schools in the
B, A
state.
squared plus B
Yeah,
squared equals C
yeah,
squared.
yeah. And so I knew even then that it was a really big deal. I remember my peers were going to either the high school that they were zoned for or moving out of state. That's when a lot of families transition. Um, and so I already was going to a middle school that I wasn't zoned for in my neighborhood. So I already was not going to go to high school with the people I was going to middle school with, and I was very okay with that. I remember just feeling indifferent and feeling bad that I was indifferent about it, but I was just kind of ready. Um, I was like made fun of a lot at that school, so I was just kind of ready for it to be done. So I got a scholarship to this two of the schools, and the one that I selected that felt like a better culture fit for me. I still agree that it was the best move for me. And the main transitions, there is the academic transition, and then there's a social transition. The academic transition for me was tough. I knew that it was going to be rigorous, and I knew that there was going to be a gap, right? Stuff that I was learning in eighth grade, a lot of the kids at this private school, they were learning in fifth, sixth grade, maybe seventh grade. And so I knew that there would be a gap. With every transition, I was also asked if I wanted to go to the grade that was next, which was ninth for me, or hang back and start as an eighth grader so I can be with kids my age. I was like, I'm not doing middle school for 4 years. Nah. So I opted to go through with ninth grade and keep going chronologically with where I was on my path. Um, and I felt there was a difference in rigor in terms of not the content that was being taught, but the speed at which it was taught. For example, and
I could totally agree with
you know
that.
what I'm saying? It was just kinda like,
Yeah.
okay, this is the natural progression of what I should learn next in, say, my math class. But the
Yeah.
expectation in public school is maybe we're gonna have a test on this at the end of the month, whereas at this private school was like, we're testing this at the end of the week and we're moving, like, let's go. And it was like, whew, it was a
Yeah.
lot. It was a lot. And so I remember it felt fast, but it didn't felt like nothing I was capable of. It was just like I just need to pick up the pace and make sure that I manage my time well. Um, I was a student athlete, so I ran track my first year of high school. Abruptly realized, oh, these kids are in it to win it like Olympics, college level. That's not me.
Sad.
So I transitioned to like theater later on. But I was a student athlete. I was exhausted all the time, but I just knew what it meant for my
Yeah.
future. And so I was able to really just kind of muscle through it because it was my parents didn't hide anything from me. Like we knew what this was for. It wasn't like
Mm,
a fun thing to try out. It was like, oh, this is your future. So we're not going to squander this opportunity because a lot of folks like us don't get opportunities like this.
right.
It's not due to a shortage of talent, it's a shortage of access and privilege, but I knew what it meant. So academically, it was tough, but it never felt like that was the part that was going to break me. The part that was probably going to break me was the social side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Socially, being a black woman in that space meant a lot of things. you were either what they call a lifer. You're there from
Yep.
junior kindergarten, their equivalent of pre-K, all the way till 12th grade, and so you grow up with these people, you go to church with these people, you live in the same neighborhood of these people, like, you travel with these people, and so you're either ingrained in that society as a Black person, which means its own thing, or you are a newbie from another state or another city who is used to the
Yeah.
environment but not used to that particular school, or you
Mm.
are, like me, a native of the city, but very much so like, "Oh, this is a side of wealth that I didn't even know about." I knew it was here, but it wasn't tangible until I
Yeah.
walked onto the campus and saw, like, the student parking lot has nicer cars than the teacher parking lot, and people are leaving their
Shoot.
technology out everywhere because it's like there's a culture of just not
That's
stealing, but there's
crazy.
also a culture of, "I don't
Yeah.
need this. I have this already, or I can just get one." Um,
Mm.
and that was the bucket that I was in. So I was coming from, I know that there is wealth in the city, but seeing it at my fingertips was like, it was a lot. There was a
Mhm.
lot of
Yeah.
survivor's remorse. There was a lot of anger
Mm.
and hatred because it's like there are so many talented people that were in my 7th and 8th grade classes that would kill for this opportunity and wouldn't squander it,
Mm.
and these people are just here. Sometimes because they don't know any better, they're like, "Whatever," because you don't know
Yeah.
what you don't know. Hi,
Oh,
Stella.
oh, not you come off for the crumbs. You greedy little dog. Look at her getting
She's
closer and
so
closer to my plate.
sweet.
Hi,
Oh my
sweetie.
god.
Hey, I love you. Go
Hey,
sit down.
sweetie. She's gonna get comfy. She can get comfy. Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
She's just getting my
I know her. She's on a sandwich.
my plate is over here. The sandwich is gone. It's just barbecue sauce at this point.
But yeah, so the social side was definitely the tougher lift in terms of went into school knowing who I was, knowing that this was temporary, so I didn't feel the need to conform to anything. It still
Mhm.
didn't make it easy though. I wasn't, confident and reckless and like, I don't care what you think. It was still really hard to be in that environment.
Yeah.
Um, but it was just what kept me going was knowing that it was temporary and it's like, okay, there are people who deserve this opportunity. Somehow I have it. So what are you gonna do with it? Um,
Mm,
yeah. What about you? When you think about like the academic versus the social? Because you did it
yeah.
first. I like watched you do it a
Right.
year, 2 years before I did.
Yeah. So for me, it was a jump as far as culture, academically and socially. Um, I that was the one year I spent in high school, in public school, um, was the one year I ever. Yep, I was trying to think through it. The one year I ever went to the school that I was actually zoned for.
Wow. Okay. So it was only that 1 year. That's it.
It was just that one year.
Mm.
And so it was public school. Um, first time I first time I had been in school and been around that many people that looked like me,
Mhm.
and the vibes were just immaculate. Um,
Yeah, high school in the
crazy
early 2000s was crazy. That
girl.
was like the swag era, the jerk era. Yeah, man. We were dancing. We're the last generation to
Yeah,
dance.
I'm done with you. To dance. Yeah, it was really cool. So going there because of the schooling that I got previous, where my mom put me in places um, that did a little bit better with teaching
Mm,
and material and curriculum. Um, my first year of high school, I kind of just breezed by and ended up being
mm,
one of the smarter kids in my classes. Um, now, fast forward to 10th grade year. So,
mm,
my 10th grade year is when I went to private school.
mhm, mhm,
So I only spent 10, 11, 12.
mhm,
So you go from that to maybe be me being maybe the one of 8
yeah,
um people of color in my entire class.
mhm,
People of color, okay, not just black people. So that includes
yeah. Asian,
Indian,
Latino, yeah, all the
Asian,
things.
biracial.
Yeah.
Okay. Um very strange. Jump. So you go from, you know, people constantly asking you what your name is cuz to like everyone knowing your name because you're easily recognizable because you stand
Yeah.
up. Um, it was a weird dynamic for me going in because some people already knew who I was because of my background.
Mm, mhm.
And so there were people who were at this particular school, teachers that were like rooting for me to get in.
Mm, mhm. Mhm.
So then when I did get in, it was like I
She's
think
finally here.
some people could, yeah, and I think some of the students picked up on like, okay, what is it about this girl that
Yeah.
these teachers are so excited about? Like what?
Mhm.
Um, and I remember my first class uh of private school. My first class that I had, first period was English.
Me too. Go
Was
ahead,
it
go ahead.
really?
Yes.
It was English, and the reason I remember it so well is because one of the first things they did, or one of the things they did in the course of class was, um, vocabulary,
Mm.
and I'm hearing words I never heard in my
Yeah,
life.
man.
Now, granted, that's kind of the point of vocabulary, is
Yes.
learning new words.
But it's like, this isn't even remotely yeah,
It
yeah.
was a different level.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Whoa. And it probably
and I was
informed my
just
journey because I remember when I was testing in, we were drilling SAT words, and it was
mhm.
probably hearing from your experience on day 1. 'Cause what? Was it wasn't a quiz, it was just recapping, "This is the vocab we're studying."
Yeah, I don't remember that
Mm,
closely.
mhm.
I just remember being astounded, like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to keep up with these kids.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, yeah. So it was just, yeah, it was very stressful. I too, like you remember walking on campus and this particular school was like when you go past it, you
Mhm.
don't see it because it's like
In the
in
trees,
the
they
trees.
hide in plain sight. Yep. Yeah. So you pull
And
up
so
and
I
you're like, "Well,
just
I've passed this a million times."
yeah, like did not know
Right?
this huge campus was
Yeah,
there.
it's
And again,
intentional
K
placement.
through 12. Mhm. And, yeah, a lot of the people in my class were lifers
Mhm.
and had been
I
at
do
the school
remember, yeah,
since
you had a strong
kindergarten.
lifer class. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so they all knew each other.
Mm.
Um, and I just, like it was very I'm trying to think of the year. Was that my sophomore year? I graduated high school in 2011.
Mhm.
10, 9, 8. Oh, so it had to be. Now that I think about it, Faith, I think my first year at Latin was, Obama's first term.
I was about to say that's Obama, so that's a very peculiar time in history. It's like our first time really actively paying attention to elections too, and so there
Yeah.
I can imagine the dialogue that was happening.
Oh, yeah. I knew that I was surrounded by a bunch of, kids who had parents who were probably very conservative.
Mhm, mhm,
Um, except for one kid who he's one of the biracial kids,
mhm.
um, was extremely popular, was in
Oh, yes.
everything. And when I say
Yeah.
everything, I mean, he was like a I don't know, wide receiver, running back, whatever, on the football team. He was also in theater. He was also in
He was like
band. He
Troy
also did
Bolton.
debate. I was like,
It's,
and
like,
he was popular.
perfect, and he was
Yeah.
attractive. Like,
I mean, yeah,
I
I'm a
mean, when
little
you have all
smart little.
those things, then I love a short king.
Yeah. And he was like a strong, very outspoken Democrat.
Mm, mm,
And so that
child.
was a very interesting dynamic of like observing that there.
Mhm,
Yeah, so it was I remember just like um smelling the trees, going to school smelling the trees and
mhm,
walking in the path and just greenery and the
mhm.
wind. And
Yeah.
it's just like a very like and it made me think about like how different public school settings are. Um,
Mhm.
I don't remember what I was listening to, but it was or who I was listening to, um, that talks about how, like I mean, it's like how it is in, like, suburbs versus the urban areas, right?
Oh, yeah,
There's, like,
environmental
no
racism and
trees.
how things are structured to be uncomfortable, to simulate prisons, to simulate factories. The
Mhm.
school bell system simulates factory workers and, like, the turn like, it's nothing is a
Yeah,
mistake. Nothing,
right.
nothing.
And so just the difference in that energy,
Mm. Mhm.
um, was crazy. So yeah, academically, I struggled, um, a little bit more, because I just felt like I was behind. I just felt
Mhm.
like I was behind, and so going from being one of the top students the previous year to, like,
Hmm.
barely hanging on, it felt like. I
Humbling. It's
never failed any of my
humbling.
classes, but I did there was probably a couple of Ds. One of
Yeah.
them had to be chemistry.
No,
Um,
yeah, my first D was I don't know what it was, it had to have been in either math or science, but I remember it was my
yeah.
first ever. I'm talking pop quizzes,
Aw.
tests, entire classes, quarterly
Oh, wow.
check-in. I had never gotten below a C in my entire life, in my entire life. So you hit this wall and it's the frustration with yourself
Mhm.
because it's like, "I failed, I took this test and I didn't do a great job." But then
Yeah.
it's also a frustration with the system because it's like, "What the hell?
Yeah,
What the
like,
hell?"
did you felt like
They're
it's like I
failing these
felt like you have
kids.
been set up for fail yeah. Feels like you've been
Mhm,
set up for failure.
mhm,
Um, and I remember thinking, like, when I was getting closer to the senior year, like, how much more prepared I felt going into college, and I remember thinking about, like, the kids who don't have that opportunity, and I'm like, "Are they
yeah.
ready?"
So much talent and potential. Not also, there are incredible people and things that come out of the public school system, like,
Mhm.
incredible. I think, if I'm not mistaken, when I think of my college crew, I was the only one who went to private school. They
Mm.
all a lot of them are medical professionals, so let's
Mhm.
clear that up.
Right.
But the hump, the transition into college, I bodied college. I bodied undergrad. Like, and not only academically being prepared, but just the socialization, like, the relationship that you have with your instructors in private school,
Mhm.
and the types of conversations you can have, and the self-management. There were no bells. It was, you know, when your next
Yeah.
class is. Just that time management, that self-management, that respect, but relationship with your professors, like, that soft
Mhm.
skill stuff
Yeah.
is really what I was able to eat down in school. And
Mhm.
when you have instructors in public schools that are literally don't have the capacity to even build that type of relationships and promote that type of environment in their classrooms,
Mhm.
it just sucks.